Today I'm going to be telling you how an attacker would create a phishing email, get you to download a reverse shell, and then upload both a keylogger and ransomware onto your computer, as well as how to prevent these things from happening. But first, let me give you a little bit of context. Technology has become increasingly prevalent in our lives, and while its presence has increased, so has the presence of various cyber attacks, and it has opened us up to many new vulnerabilities. In fact, back in October, Checkpoint Research CPR reported a 40% increase in cyber attacks globally, with 1 out of every 61 organizations worldwide impacted by ransomware itself. Certain industries are also being targeted the most, including education, government, and healthcare. One of the most expensive phishing scams in history occurred a few years ago, between 2013 and 2015, and its targets were Facebook and Google. Quanta Computer, a company that both Facebook and Gmail use, sent elaborate fake invoices, which ended up costing the two tech giants $100 million. The hacker created convincing forgery emails using fake email accounts and then sent fake invoices to employees that regularly conducted transactions with the company that they were impersonating, Quanta Computer. However, hackers don't always hack for financial reasons. Sometimes there are political reasons involved as well. For example, in February of 2022, Ukrainian websites and banks were hit by a DDoS attack, during which hackers flooded the servers until it became overloaded and shut down. Clients of certain state-owned banks began to complain about not being able to use the teller machines. Some clients' bank balances even looked drained, and it caused quite a bit of widespread panic. Could definitely have some political motives behind it due to the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine that are going on right now, and if so, this would be deemed as cyber warfare. So that's a lot of damage that hackers have done around the globe, but why? What could be their motivation? Well, for one, there's espionage, where a hacker might try to steal confidential information to get advantage over a competitive company or a political entity. Next, there's destruction, where a hacker hurts others simply because they like the chaos and the panic that is created. And lastly, hackers hack for financial gain, and this can be done in many ways, by selling confidential information on the black web or using sensitive information themselves to gain access to someone's financial records. So today I'm going to be educating you on the issue of cybersecurity, as well as discussing ways as to how you can protect yourself. But first, you may be wondering, how are these attacks really carried out? In fact, how easy are they to do? Well, let me show you. But first, we're going to cover some vocabulary. So let's begin with the keylogger, which essentially captures your keystrokes, and a lot of times this can be used to get your usernames and passwords. Next is a phishing email, and this is essentially when a hacker might send out an email to the victim that looks legitimate and real, but in reality it's not, and the hacker can use this to in turn get your username, passwords, just some form of information out of you. And lastly, a reverse shell is when a connection is established from the victim computer to the attacker computer instead of the other way around, and it's a way to bypass the firewall. Now that you know some background in key vocabulary related to this project, let's begin with making the actual keylogger itself.
So there are essentially 2 ways to approach this part: making your own keylogger using a coding language such as Python, or using someone else's off the internet. For this project, I'm going to go with the second option, and I use this keylogger by David Bombal. To use it, simply click on Raw, save it to your computer, and then use NuitCut to convert it to an exe file so that it will run on another Windows machine. Additionally, I would like to add that for most Python scripts, you will need to use the command pip install pineput to install pineput so that you can compile the code. However, if you want to go down the first route and make your own keylogger and don't have much previous coding knowledge, you can find a lot of pages online, such as this one by Geeks for Geeks, that teaches you how to design a keylogger in Python.
Now let me show you how the keylogger actually works on Windows. And I'm going to open up the keylogger on my computer. As you can see, it's called Python Keylogger, and I'm going to launch it. Let's say that I'm a victim and I have no idea that a keylogger is running on my account. And I decide to check my email, so I sign into Gmail. And say my username is username@gmail.com, and my password is 12345. Guys, this is not a safe password. Please do not make this your actual password, but just for the purposes of the simulation, let's go with that. Now I'm going to show you what is created when you do this. It's actually a log file, and it comes up in the same folder as the keylogger, And once I open the log file, it shows me the individual keystrokes that are made, including the username and password. So you can imagine just how dangerous or destructive this could be if a hacker was able to get access to your credentials like that.
This project is going to involve making the reverse shell, and for this I'm going to be using Kali Linux.
So as you can see, I have my Kali box opened, and I already have a payload made, which is a reverse HTTPS payload, and it's called covid2.exe. But right now I'm going to show you how to start it back up to launch it. So first, I'm going to open up MSF console, which essentially is a form of Metasploit, and it's used quite often in penetration testing and even by hackers themselves. So then I am going to use exploit multi-handler, and as you can see here, it uses the configured payload, which is a reverse TCP, but what I've said before is mine is actually a reverse HTTPS payload, so I need to change that as I did above. I'm going to set my listening port to 8443, which is a pretty common port to listen on, and then for my listening host, I'm going to be using the IP address of this victim machine, or this virtual machine, which is 192.168.76.130. Now I'm almost ready to go, but I do need to make sure that service Apache 2 has been started, and as you can see, it's running. And now all I have to do is put in exploit, and now we wait. So as you can see, it did start the HTTPS reverse handler.
So you might be wondering, how do you access this from the victim machine, since this was all done on the Kali box itself? But if you go into your victim machine and go to Internet Explorer or Chrome or something of that sort and type in the IP address of our host or of our Kali box, which is 192.168.76.130 -covid2.exe, which is the name of our payload, it actually downloads the payload, and all you have to do is run it to get your reverse shell started.
And when the victim runs the payload, it will create an application that calls back to the attacker machine, giving the attacker full remote access.
So now let's move on to part 3, the phishing email.
So this is the phishing email, and at first glance, it does look pretty legitimate. As you can see here, it asks you to go to a link, and this is actually a website that I created. It looks pretty legitimate, and this is because most of the source code is actually taken from the actual LabQuark's website. But all I did change is add a little button over here, which takes you to the page that will download your reverse shell. However, as you can see, there are a few minute errors everywhere, and stuff that a professional website wouldn't have, so these should send up warning bells in your head, along with the fact that this link, if you hover over it, doesn't take you to the LabQuark's website, but actually a GitHub website, which again should be a little hint to you that maybe this email isn't as legitimate as it seems. So now that we've got our phishing email, let's hope that our victim falls prey to it, and let's see what happens next.
Now let's put it all together with the phishing email, reverse shell, keylogger, and ransomware.
So I've already sent the email to my victim over here, and I'm just going to click on it so you can see what I see. And it tells me that my COVID test results are ready, and all I have to do is click on this link. And I'm going to do that right away, and it opens me up to this page over here. And once I click on it, you can see that it takes me to another page. So as you can see here, it's gone on to the next page, and it seems to be downloading something, and it turns out that it's a COVID file. So let's say I'm the victim, I'm not suspicious of anything, so I'm just gonna click the open file, and lo and behold, the reverse shell has actually started, but the victim doesn't know this.
Now we saw what the victim sees once the attack shell has started, which is essentially nothing. But what does the attacker see, and what all can they do with it?
So now you can see that the interpreter session has opened, and I essentially have remote access to the victim machine. And let's say that I want to look at the directory, so I'll have to just put in dir, and it's going to show me all the files that are on the victim machine, and I can move around in it if I want as well. But first, I'm going to be uploading my keylogger. So the command for that is upload, and then you put in the path of the keylogger, which for me is the path that I'm putting in right now. And it's going to take a little while and upload it onto the victim machine. So now it has successfully uploaded, and I'm going to be showing you what it looks like on the victim machine itself. On the victim machine, you can see that a new executable has been created, the Python keylogger. So I've moved back to my attacker machine, but how am I going to start this keylogger from here? Well, let me show you. Well, the command for that is execute, and then Python keylogger, or whatever it's called, .exe, and it's going to start executing it. And you can see that a new process has been created. And now I'm going to go back to my victim machine, and I'm going to put in some of my credentials. I'm going to click around a little bit. Maybe I will go to downloads and look at my very important passwords file, and I am going to need to get the keylogs file that was created that stores, well, all my keystrokes. So what I'm going to do here is download keylogs.txt, because that's what it was called, and as you can see, it's downloaded it. And if I want to see what's inside of it, I simply need to do cat.keylogs.txt, and it will show me my keystrokes, including the passwords file. And so right here, I simply typed in passwords file, but as you saw previously, if I had put in my credentials or something else, it could have been much more dangerous. So for the final part of this project, we're going to be deploying ransomware onto the victim machine. But first, let me show you how to create it. So for the ransomware, I actually used code that I found on Google, on GitHub to be exact, to create it. So to create the ransomware, I actually used code that I found on Google, or GitHub to be exact. This is the exact page that I used, and once I clicked on code, I saw a download zip button, so I downloaded it, unzipped it, and then uploaded that onto my Kali box so that I could use it and launch my attack on the victim machine. Now that we have our ransomware ready, we're going to be uploading it onto the victim machine. And we're going to use the same format as before, so upload bar www.html, and this time my ransomware is called Windows Forms app1.exe. So now it's going to take a little while, it's going to upload it. And as you can see, it has uploaded it already. I'm just going to make sure that it's been uploaded. And can I see it over here? Yes, I can. So now I am going to be running this application. So execute chef. So again, same format as before. And now I just need to put in the name. And now it's just going to take a minute to execute. It's created a process. And let's go see what our victim machine looks like right now. So now that I've moved over to my victim machine, you can see that my screen looks completely different, and I'm not able to access any of the other information that was on there. Any of my folders, nothing. And it says that 22 of my files have been encrypted, and to recover my data, I have to send Bitcoin, and this is the email that I have to send it to. Now, this is all a simulation and essentially hypothetical, but this does happen in real life. Granted, maybe you won't get a RIP LMAO sign that pops up on your computer, but it does happen, and it happens to various companies who often spend billions of dollars on recovering their data. Now that you've seen just how easy it could be to potentially launch an attack, how do you protect yourself? There are essentially a variety of ways to protect yourself from malware overall, but first I'm going to show you how to protect yourself from a phishing email or a phishing scam like this one. And one of the first things that stand out to me are where the email comes from. And as you can see over here, it says attackerfsd2022@gmail.com. That definitely does not seem very legitimate, especially because it says that the email came from someone from the LabCorp's team, or the team overall. And this source has nothing to do with LabCorp's at all. Definitely seems very suspicious, and isn't something that you would see if the email came from a legitimate medical team. Secondly, you can also hover over this link, and you'll see on the bottom left of my screen, it actually tells you where the link is going to take you. And it's not the LabCorp's page, it's actually a GitHub page, and that should definitely be another warning sign. Now, once I click the link itself, it seems that the first thing my eyes are drawn to is this HTML code over here. This is definitely not something that would be on an official website, especially not for a company as big as LabCorp's. And this, along with the HTML code right here, are definitely both red flags. So that's how you protect yourself from phishing emails, is making sure to check where the email comes from, and if there's any links or attachments, just making sure that you know what you're downloading. Overall, just a good rule to follow is not to download anything if you're not sure that the person who sent it to you is trusted. So overall, I hope you learned how easy it can be to launch an attack, along with how to protect yourself from being one of the 6.85 million accounts that get hacked every day. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something from it.